BBC Radio Merseyside.
Morning, it's Salty on for Tony Snell between now and 9:30. Coming up then, a young Wirral woman whose father took his own life last year has set up a special programme in his memory to provide suicide intervention training and prevent further deaths. We'll hear from Jessica Gallier in a moment. Thousands of Chinese labourers will be honoured in a special ceremony at Liverpool's Anfield Cemetery this afternoon. BBC Radio Merseyside's Jenny Lee Summers is there for us this morning to find out more about the men of the Chinese Labour Corps and their contribution to the First World War. We'll hear from her before 5:30, and it's Friday, so that means we'll be bringing you another taste of the wonderful world of science that's right here on Merseyside. Sci-Fries coming up before 9 o'clock.
Paul Salt, BBC Radio Merseyside.
Stay tuned to us for all of that. We've got the conundrum as well. It's day 2. I'll give you that a little bit later on. First, though, it's a shocking statistic that suicide is the single biggest killer of men under the age of 45 in the UK. Despite this, still a topic which we find difficult to talk about, isn't it? It's so easy to say, you're all right, you're feeling fine, when actually you're far from it. But it doesn't have to be that way. Jessica Gallier from Port Sunlight has set up a suicide prevention project called Gallier House in memory of her late father, who took his own life last year. And I'm pleased to say that she joins me now. Jessica, good morning to you.
Morning, Paul. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Suicide statistics, they're shocking, aren't they? And particularly bad across Merseyside and Cheshire.
Absolutely shocking, yeah. All the statistics I've got today are from a joint audit between Merseyside and Cheshire. There are certain areas that are a little bit higher than the national average. I mean, St Helens, for example, stands at 13.7 per 100,000, which is significantly higher than the 10.1, which is the national average. So it shocks me that we're not really reaching out to these people and that we're not really doing very much to prevent these suicides and prevent these prevent these tragedies going forward. I can't get my head around it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about your dad.
So, well, my dad, Martin Gallier, what can you say about Martin Gallier? Hey, he was a funny man. He was life and soul of the party. He was a great character, but unfortunately, he did suffer with his mental health for the majority of his life. He suffered with alcohol abuse, which obviously caused him to deteriorate quite rapidly towards the end. February of last year, we got that dreaded phone call. I'd love to say that we didn't see it coming, but I can honestly say we did. Every morning we woke up waiting for that phone call, really. And we got that dreaded phone call to say that he'd taken his own life. And, you know, my dad was a father of 5 and our world's just turned upside down with a phone call.
Yeah. I mean, you're not that old.
I'm 28.
Yeah, for anyone to deal with that news, I don't know how you go about beginning to try and deal with it and move on for yourself. How difficult was that?
Absolutely. I mean, it was very difficult. You don't particularly have a choice. I'm the eldest of the 5, and we do range in age right down to kind of, at the time I was 26 and the youngest was 9. So it was very difficult, but we just didn't have a choice. It was one of those, you don't know how you would deal with it, but when you're faced with that situation, you just kind of suck it up and carry on. The way we see things is if we can turn that pain, and if we can turn it into some sort of positivity moving forward to help other families and to stop other people from going through this, even if it saves one other person and one other family from going through the pain that we've suffered, then, you know, our efforts will be worth it.
Yeah, and depression and mental health is in the news a lot at the moment for good reasons, because it's bringing awareness about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But male depression and male suicide is a particular problem, isn't it? Because men don't speak out. Whether it's a macho thing, we don't want to talk about it, do we?
Absolutely, and my dad was your prime example of that. You know, men are men and men are strong and men don't talk about this, whereas women will sit and have a coffee or a glass of wine and, you know, we'll gab about it and talk about it and get it off our chests. And, you know, that's why the rates are so much higher with men than women. I mean, it is across the board. It's, you know, old, young, male, female. It doesn't discriminate against anybody, but men are a particular problem when it comes to speaking out about their feelings.
So tell us about the project in memory of your dad then.
So the project idea came about when we went through a really gruelling inquest process, and obviously we've seen from the Hillsborough inquest that it is gruelling and it is long and it is really, really damaging to the families. And there were a few issues with ours, so it did go on for about eight months, and there were a lot of different services involved. With that, we got full disclosure of all the records of Dad's care leading up to his death, and he did have a lot of contact, with mental health and with his GP and with the police. I've got a statistic here that 35% of people have been in contact with their GP or primary care, and 26% have been in contact with mental health services in the month before they've died. So it was kind of textbook. As we were going through this inquest, it became really apparent that there were a lot of gaps in the services, and a lot of holes. Now, these services do great work, but we all know resources are really stretched, really limited, funds are limited. And I noticed that a lot of the time it really does come down to members of the public or members of that person's family to kind of intervene and prevent something like this, especially when a previous attempt has been recorded. So 38% of people who have successfully committed suicide, sorry, I shouldn't say committed suicide, that's really, really wrong of me, taken their own lives, have had a previous attempt. So 38%, that's massive.
That's a high stat, isn't
That's
it?
a massive
I'm quite
stat.
shocked
It's quite
by that.
shocking.
Yeah.
And that's from Merseyside and Cheshire. That's from that joint audit. So, I mean, that is a really, really shocking number to me. And if we're putting that support in place when that attempt has happened, then the family know how to deal with that going forward. So a really practical example of how this training will save lives. So I'll use Dad as an example here. So before we lost Dad, 7 years prior, Dad had an attempt and it was unsuccessful. At that time, obviously, support is given, services are triggered, sometimes, and then they go away. So 7 years is a long, long time.
Yeah.
So 7 years later, those services have gone and that person starts to feel suicidal again. So what happens? So if the family have been given some training at the time, the wife, the husband, the children, the parents, whoever it might be, have been given this suicide intervention training, they're then equipped to safeguard that person, to identify those triggers, to identify what's going on, and to trigger the services that they need to save their life.
When you say training then, what would the training entail? Are you looking for warning signs? Is it being able to spot those warning signs, that kind of thing?
So the training that we're looking to offer, the training that we're going to offer in the Northwest is going to be, it's called ASSIST, so it's Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. So what that is, practically speaking, you come across somebody that's that you think's struggling, someone that's having a mental health episode, struggling, with suicidal thoughts, and you don't know what to do. It gives you those skills to know what to say, know what to do, just to protect that person and immediately safeguard them until the services arrive. So it gives you those skills. Basic first aid. We all know basic first aid. You learn it at school. You learn it when you go to work. I don't think I've ever actually had to use it, but the amount of times I've come across somebody in the public that's struggling with their mental health that really needs the support, and we're not equipped to do it because we're just not trained to have those conversations and prevent those tragedies.
And if someone is feeling down or, God forbid, suicidal, they're probably would far prefer to talk to a friend or a relative than someone who they don't know, wouldn't they? So if
Absolutely,
the person
yeah.
can do that and act, I mean, you're acting as a counsellor, aren't you, in effect?
Pretty much, yeah. And it's giving everybody those skills to be able to do that. Now, I know my dad, again, I'll use him as an example. He would never have gone to a counsellor. He would never have gone to his GP and say, oh, hey, guess what? I'm struggling. In fact, the reports from his GP said that he was absolutely fine the day before his death.
You can understand that, though, can't you?
Yeah, I can totally understand it.
And they say with depression that you become a good actor.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's clearly what he did, wasn't it?
I've done it myself. I mean, after we lost my dad, I suffered myself. I did have a complete breakdown. We lost him in the February, and I pretended I was okay till the September. So, that's what we're all doing here, and I don't know why we're doing it.
And then it all hit you,
it all hit me, and I just went, no, hang on, I'm actually not okay.
And how are you doing?
I'm great.
Now?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
And the biggest weight was saying, do you know what? Actually, I'm not okay. And then, I was able to build on that and obviously build this project going forward. It's massive self-healing for me to be able to do this as well.
And just finally, I know you're trying to raise funds, obviously, for this.
Of course.
How can people help?
So we've got the Just Giving page. We've got loads of stuff going on, but we have got a bit of a sense of urgency at the moment. We've been offered a really incredible opportunity to go and qualify to give this training out funded across the Northwest. But it's in September rather than next year. There's one place in the country that does the training. It's really few and far between. So we've been offered that for September. So we are in a bit of a rush to raise the money. So we've got the Just Giving page. That's justgiving.com/crowdfunding/Gallier-house. Or you can pop onto Facebook and just search Gallier House and it'll all come up, all the information, all the links will come up on there. Obviously, you'll see a lot of us fundraising in the next couple of months, but initially we just need those funds to get off the ground.
And just before you go, I know there's a special song for your dad and I think for you as well. Which song was it?
So Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough, is really significant to us. It's something that my dad used to play at midnight really loud and wake all the kids up, and it's something that he taught us all to play on the piano. None of us can play the piano, we can just play Depeche Mode, and I think that's quite cool.
Well, that's very cool. It's a cool song as well.
It is.
We'll play it after 8:30.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you.
And good luck with it all. And just search for Gallier House on justgiving.com to donate. Thanks so much for coming in and telling us all about it.
Thank you.
This is the Golden Hour from Radio 1 FM.